Hello, and thank you for joining us today for Frost & Sullivan's latest webinar from our Transformational Health Practice. Today's event is titled 2019 Global Healthcare Predictions Unleashed: Growth Opportunities, Technologies, and Trends. My name is Anna, and I oversee Frost & Sullivan's Growth, Innovation, and Leadership briefings. Before we begin, I'd like to go over a few quick notes. We will have some detailed slides on today's presentation, so there's a full screen feature available in the lower right-hand corner of your webinar player. You can safely share this briefing at any time via social media, email, or blogs. Today's discussion will also be available on demand shortly after we finished. And don't forget to submit your questions throughout the session today. Our presenters today are Renita Das, Partner and Senior Vice President, and Galmajit Barrera, Industry Analyst. With that, I would now like to hand the briefing over to Renita, who is also going to be our moderator for today's webinar.
Thank you so much, Anna. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone who has joined us from all parts of the world. I'm very excited today to be presenting our 2019 outlook for healthcare, which is expected to be an amazing year for us. I have been doing the predictions for healthcare for the last 10 years, and I think overall we're getting better and better in being able to predict what is expected to come. So what is the most interesting part for me really is to see how we did and fared for the 2018 predictions in retrospect. So I'll quickly focus on that and then move on to what we see as the top predictions and outlook for 2019, followed by 3 growth opportunities in each of the major sectors. But before I begin, I want to just quickly talk about the methodology we followed in order to reach our predictions. As you probably know, we have a team of 200 analysts all across the world studying and tracking different markets and industries within healthcare. And for this study, we engaged almost 50 of our sectoral and regional experts within Frost & Sullivan's Transformational Health Practice. We collected their insights on key technologies, themes, and megatrends that would have a profound implication on the healthcare industry in 2019. In addition to that, we ran an external survey with 300 plus healthcare CXOs and key opinion leaders to round out the predictions around key technologies such as artificial intelligence, blockchain, big data, wearables, and mHealth. And some of these made it to our 2019 list. In fact, for most of the 2019 predictions, we have dedicated research studies that are already published on our website or are upcoming as part of our research calendar for the year. So let's look back at how we did in terms of 2018 and how many of these actually came out as true and valid. So we made 8 big predictions last year, and I'm really happy to say that we did well on each one of them. And I'll just talk quickly about what we said we were going to achieve and what we did achieve. So the first one was that we anticipated that product as a service business model would contribute about 2 to 3% of revenue from leading drug and device companies in 2018. And in fact, based on our estimates to date, we believe that platform-based services actually accounted for 5% of revenue for leading medical technology companies during the 2018. The second prediction we made was that global revenues for providers in the healthcare cloud computing market would cross $5 billion in 2018, growing at a CAGR of around 24% during the next 5 years. And we continue to see cloud becoming more foundational to provide the much-needed infrastructure for converging healthcare technologies such as AI, big data analytics, and wearables. The third prediction we made was we expected big tech companies like the GAFA companies, Google, Apple, Facebook, to one of them to actually get approval in terms of FDA's fast-track program for digital therapeutics. And it is very, very interesting that we're proud to see that this prediction came true with the Apple Watch Series 4, the first consumer device to receive FDA approval that came out earlier this year. And we believe that we expect 3 more companies in the next 2 years which would attain FDA's Fast Track program for digital therapeutics and health apps, and our bets are on Google, Samsung, and Fitbit. The fourth prediction we made was that virtual and remote clinical trial adoptions would increase, and 20% of all clinical trials globally would adopt some form of virtualization. We have begun to see this already happening between leading pharma companies moving towards digitally led hybrid clinical trial design and patient-centric trials to leverage real-world data and optimize trial protocols. For example, in March 2018, Novartis introduced its plan with alliance with Science 37 to conduct 10 new clinical trials that would include both virtual and traditional models over the next 3 years. And we are seeing other leading pharma companies like GSK, Sanofi, Otsuka, and Amgen doing the same thing. So our prediction of about 20% of trials being virtual is already true. Our fifth prediction was on robotics for surgery and care assistance within hospitals that would gain a high penetration. And we gave some numbers of $1.6 billion for 2018, growing at around 36%, while surgical robot devices would exceed $20 billion globally by 2020. I do believe this prediction is definitely coming to reality for this year because of the looming shortage of care workers across the world. We anticipate that robotic-assisted surgical procedures will grow for about 5 to 20% over the next 18 months. Our sixth prediction was focused on Asia Pacific, where we believed that Asia would lead in terms of smart hospitals, and there would be approximately 3,200 smart hospital beds created over the course of the year. And we have indeed found that in terms of active investment by existing private hospitals in Asia-Pac region, especially in South Korea, Australia, Singapore, and Malaysia. And we do believe that many of these hospitals are also integrating some of the newer technologies of IoT sensors, healthcare data, and analytics in terms of chronic disease management. Our seventh prediction was on cyber attacks, and this is something that's very, very pertinent in terms of light of what is happening today. 3.15 million records were exposed by 142 healthcare data breaches just in one quarter alone. This is in quarter 2 of 2018, which is actually twice more compared to the same time in 2017. So this phenomena is going to continue to increase, and we believe also that healthcare companies have the highest days, where we're looking at 103 days to identify and contain a data breach compared to any other industry in the same magnitude and sector. So this is something definitely in red alert that has definitely come true and will continue to haunt us until we find resolution. And the last prediction we made was incentive-based wellness programs will gain popularity. 2018 is proving to be a year where innovative private insurance models have begun to shake up the healthcare payer industry, and we believe that some of these wellness-based incentive models will continue to flourish. Frost & Sullivan research suggests that interactive policies will continue to gain popularity in 2019, and we will discuss this also as one of the trends moving forward, what we see in 2019. So moving on to actual projections of what the markets will look like for 2019 and what our projections look like. The global healthcare industry will register a stable growth of around 5.1% during 2019, and we will cross $1.96 trillion globally in terms of manufacturer revenues. Now, this does not include hospital revenues. Digital transformation and realization of long-term pending policy reforms will be the two most important priority pillars during 2019 for all healthcare sectors globally. I'd like to quickly move on and discuss some of our regional predictions of where we see the biggest growth opportunities. And obviously, I want to start with the growth opportunities, starting with the emerging markets. I think access to affordable and quality care will be the key political agenda for the upcoming 2019 elections in many of the markets in Asia, Africa, Central, and Eastern European countries. We project high growth opportunities in emerging markets, and these are specific ones that I just want to highlight. For example, ASEAN countries will become the best cost destination for all range of medical device manufacturing to meet local needs. Singapore, Malaysia, and Thailand will lead the medical device manufacturing and distribution market in Asia Pacific and become the preferred destination for medium and low-grade medical device manufacturers. Asia Pacific will also witness the genomics revolution in the next few years. We already have seen China taking a lead in the genomics race. Asian investors such as SoftBank and Tencent, we believe, will continue to put in big bucks into genomic-focused companies. Recently, SoftBank invested in Guardian Health, and China's Tencent was one of the top investors in the U.S.-based Grail. We believe that this will continue to happen through 2019. With regard to government policy, with medical tourism and medical device manufacturing, that will continue to increase at around 15% in some of these ASEAN countries. There will also be a rise in unicorn startups that is valued at over $1 billion, and a lot more foreign direct investment in increasing the demand for healthcare services because of the aging population and rising health income levels. Developed countries like Singapore, Australia, New Zealand, Korea, and Japan will continue to focus on healthcare management of costs and explore digital technologies. For Japan, I think the biggest innovation for 2019 will be in regeneration medicine. Japan will be the first ever country in the world to start their trial with drug using induced pluripotent stem cells, iPS cells, and we believe that this will begin in 2019, and it will further differentiate their country in terms of regeneration medicine. And Japan will continue to lead the race for regeneration medicine for the next few years. Our bets on South Korea is that South Korea will invest heavily in clinical trial environment for medical devices and pharmaceuticals, and as they want to become a global clinical trial hub in the world. With continued success and momentum in commercializing stem cell therapy products, South Korea's Samsung Bioepis has already gained Europe and FDA approval for 4 biosimilars. They will continue to lead that race in 2019. The Latin American outlook is kind of rocky for next year in our view. We believe there will be continuing healthcare access through private-public partnership and technology. We know in Mexico there are 7 private-public partnership projects for new hospitals that have been approved for around 22 billion pesos. That will be the model for next year. We're hoping that the Latin American healthcare market starts to stabilize from 2019 onwards. I think Africa is going to be a lot about e-health-driven initiatives. There's already a $9 billion global fund commitment for 2017 through 2019 that will provide public-private partnership opportunities to modernize hospital infrastructure, supply chain, improve data quality and data management systems, and strengthen human resources in healthcare. And that path will continue to develop in 2019. In terms of the United States, I believe that it's definitely going to focus on value-based care, and especially on the onslaught of the recent elections that we have just seen. Given the high cost variance for healthcare costs, sometimes which is 400 to 600%, 2019, I believe, will usher in pilot programs that will help to reduce this variation in cost to 2 standard deviations across all post-acute care modalities. We also believe that there will be further integration of providers and payers to drive costs out and improve efficiency, and far more middle parties will evaporate from this healthcare system. We do believe that big tech companies like Amazon, Google, and Apple will continue to make the inroads into the healthcare system. going into healthcare in terms of actual systems, operations, and clinical processes, and not just play in the consumer market. And this will continue to challenge the digital transformation and productivity of the current healthcare environment. With regard to Europe, shifting economic, population, and behavior dynamics will see a rise in healthcare expenditure in many of the European countries in 2019. We are also going to see tremendous pressure on public health systems and many patients moving towards private systems during the course of the year. Healthcare out-of-pocket payments will increase as the Europe population are much more health aware and trying to begin to take personal responsibility and focusing on long-term care. The UK healthcare and life science sector will remain a key influencer during Brexit negotiations and during the post-Brexit phase. The UK life science deal, which aims to boost UK R&D funding to 2.4% of GDP, will continue and make UK a very, very attractive destination for high-quality talent, investment, and funding grants. And I also believe that UK and China, Europe and China, will continue to strengthen their trade links, especially for personalized medicine and the healthcare approach. With this, I'd like to move quickly to one poll question that we have, and I'll give a minute to everyone to answer this poll question. What question we have is, tell us one key technology you believe will have the highest revenue impact on the healthcare industry in 2019. And we have 5 answers, and you might select just one. The answers are artificial intelligence, big data analytics, cloud, blockchain, and mHealth. So I'll give you a few seconds to select your answer, and then we will move on. And I'll pass it on for the second section to my colleague Kamaljeet, who will actually go through the actual 8 predictions with you. So we only have 2 votes so far from the audience, so I request if all of you can go ahead with this voting and then we can continue. That would be great. Okay, I'm going to forward it on to Kamaljeet. Kamaljeet, over to you.
Thank you, Renita. Hello, everyone. Thanks for taking time to participate in our briefing. So the next chapter, we are going to take you forward and discuss what are our key 8 predictions for 2019. Now, before considering the time constraint of this limited edition, we'll be only discussing the top 3 in details. However, we will provide a brief introduction about all the 8 predictions with you today. So, before moving into in detail about the top 3 predictions, I would like to discuss the remaining 5 part of the predictions. Starting with the 4th predictions, what is basically around the Asia become the new local innovation focus for global drug and device OEMs, and what we anticipate that during 2019 or ongoing in 2019, up to 10% of the healthcare R&D, research and development investment will be made towards localizing innovation for emerging market in Asia, such as the countries like Southeast Asian countries like Malaysia, Thailand, Philippines, and India and China, among others. Now, one of the chief reasons for that is for decades we have seen especially the medical innovation pipeline for different the drugs and devices have been influenced much by the Western world. For example, pharma industry has long been driven by the demand from especially US and the Western European markets, were paying very scant attention to emerging markets and diseases more prevalent there. But now what we anticipate that given that emerging market contribute about 20 to 30% of the pharmaceutical industry's value and registering a double-digit growth in the last few years, this is going to steer companies who will attempt to upend the trend with new drugs and products tailored to Asian bodies and lifestyle. And based on industry estimate, we also see that more than 80% of the patients or the healthcare consumers find products or drugs developed in the developed market, introduced in the emerging markets, are not cost efficient in terms of their purchasing parity. And apart from that cost effectiveness factor, a local R&D presence also help MNCs in creating reputation for innovation and attractiveness to specific needs. For example, help in building relationship with government and local regulatory authorities. And for example, in Asia Pacific is expected to register one of the highest growth rate, especially for very innovative things such as cell therapy alone. And we anticipate that moving forward, about 30% of the global late-stage trials on cell therapy will be driven by the Asia Pacific region. Now, apart from the global MNCs, even the domestic player in the Asia Pacific region will continue to be a serious contender for pharma and medtech R&D, that is research and development-driven innovations. Moving to the next prediction, that is number 5, we believe the application of healthcare data analytics will shift from the big data to meaningful small data by healthcare specialty. And specifically, we anticipate by end of 2019, about 50% of the healthcare companies will have resources dedicated to assessing, sharing, and analyzing real-world evidence for use cases across their organization. And during 2019, we believe more number of specialty-specific analytic solutions will gain prominence among providers, striving to investigate use cases around drug utilization, treatment variability, clinical trial eligibility, even billing discrepancies, and some other operational inefficiencies in the care delivery arena. Now, the priority goal for the payers or the providers will be around identifying at-risk individuals, which is closely associated with ongoing topics around population health management or even precision medicine per se. Now, with that, what we see also is convergence of technologies will be pretty important, as we anticipate augmented analytics capabilities will advance rapidly to mainstream adoption as a key feature of data preparation, data management, and more importantly, modern analytics around business processes, management, and mining data for specific scientific platforms. Now, moving on to the next prediction, that is 6. We believe that healthcare will be a dominant vertical in voice application, and especially during 2019, we believe HIPAA-compliant voice and chat applications for healthcare will gain prominence, and especially there will be a serious competition around some of the niche vendors such as Nuance and Orbita, and some of the tech titans such as Amazon, Apple, Google, and Microsoft, among others, who are aggressively investing on voice around healthcare applications. Now, for example, what we see is some of the trends that are driving it based on the HIMSS 2018 conference. We see clearly one of the biggest story was around the Nuance solutions, which basically provide clinical grade voice solutions for healthcare industry. And moving forward, what we see is that even our client inquiries, especially applications such as speech, transcription, etc., would move forward to use enabling technologies such as AI or virtual assistant as part of dealing with things, and more importantly, to understand how these solutions can be leveraged by major healthcare IT vendors such as the EMR, EHR vendors, and non-clinical IT vendors to come up with voice play as a competitive edge moving forward. However, current maturity of the tech, especially the voice tech, makes it suitable for limited use cases such as around the guided transaction, but it will be still well suited to convey lengthy. It will be still not well suited to convey lengthy pieces of information. And moving forward in the near future, we anticipate voice recognition, when paired with artificial intelligence as a technology, may soon become a common background technology, during clinical encounters, acting as a scribe, or even clinical documentation assistance, and potentially a decision support tool in the future, next 5 to 6 years of time. Moving on to the next prediction, that is prediction number 7. We believe blockchain will finally start to move from the hype to reality, with initial commercial implementation generating reasonable ROI. And specifically by end of 2019, we anticipate about 5 to 10% of the healthcare focused enterprise blockchain application will move from pilot stage to partial or limited commercial applications. And this has been true, especially considering some of the initiative by companies such as Change Health, which has been one of the leading player in the US in the RCM space, and the success they have been able to recently early this year they introduced their solution called as Intelligent Health Network, which is their current capability can process some 550 odd transactions per second. And this claim education use case, they came up with a recent announcement where they have collaborated with a company called as TIPCO on a project called as Dovetail project, where especially they are looking forward to develop a framework which would allow payers and financial institutions in the US market to build smart contracts that would govern healthcare transaction process more efficiently and effectively. Similarly, we see some of the other use cases that are already commercial by companies such as Hash Health around physician or the provider credentialing. They have also some of the recent announcement made in this week's distributed health conference, and we also anticipate ongoing advancement around their current physician credentialing platform, as well as some of the development around contract education solutions, which they will be soon announcing in the recent in few weeks from now. Apart from that, there are some other commercial solutions such as GuardTime in Estonia, which has made one of the biggest cases in the last 2 years, and we have seen other use cases, other bigger consortium forming around the other use cases such as companies such as Humana, Multiplan, Optum, Quest Diagnostics, and United Health launched blockchain-driven effort to tackle care provider data management. And based on industry estimate, this type of problem account for around 2.1 billion spent annually across health system chasing and maintaining provider data. And apart from that, on the clinical trial side or the drug traceability slide, we also see major pharma companies and distributors such as Pfizer, Genentech, AbbVie, McKesson, and Ambrosius are coming together to tackle the drug supply chain counterfeiting issues. Now, given all this development, we believe in 2019 the debate will move from exploring how and where can blockchain technology be used in the healthcare space, and some of the low-hanging other use cases would be around track and trace, supply chain auditability, identity management, and obviously some of the companies to watch in the space would be Spiritus, which essentially is developing a solution around device lifecycle management. Bitment, one of the interesting company which is working around free on-demand telemedicine consulting services with a pure research common or data sharing concept as a trade-off for physician consultation. And in the pharma clinical trial, we have a lot of companies such as CounsellX, which is working on the clinical trial data management platforms enabled by blockchain solutions. Now, moving on to the final prediction, that is number 8, we believe that innovative private insurance model would continue to shake up healthcare payer industry, and especially by end of 2019, we believe about 5 to 10% of life insurance plan will be linked to lifestyle and health data-driven interactive policies in some form. And there is a primary industry need which is actually driving that. Now, if we see the health insurance policies available today are often aged and fail to meet the personalized need of individuals. As a result, the health insurance industry, even across developed market, is expected to see a growth rate of just 1.5% during 2018 and even during 2019. And to ensure future growth, globally, a number of insurance companies are already providing data and digitally driven healthcare services to their policyholders to personalize experiences and reduce the cost from potential claims. Now, what we believe the industry needs is a consumer-centric approach around insurance programs that incentivizes individuals for adhering to healthy habits and lifestyle. And we strongly believe that interactive policy will continue to gain popularity globally as it enables insurance companies to leverage individual data and then use it to personalize premiums and discounts and rewards in the next generation plans. And just to quote some examples, we have major companies across the globe such as Vitality and Prudential with a program called MyDNA in the South Asia countries. We have Discovery as an insurance company quite active with this innovative insurance plans in Africa. And obviously in US market we have United Health Group with Qualcomm collaboration on certain programs. And in South Korea, some of the emerging companies such as Zitco are working on decentralized health insurance leveraging blockchain and AI wearable and IoT platforms. With that, now let's move on to discuss the top 3 predictions in details. And our first predictions, which we'll be discussing in detail today, is around value-based care programs as they will get progress as outcome-focused globalizes. And specifically under that, we believe by end of 2019, about roughly 15% of the global spending, that is close to around $1 trillion US, will be tied in some form with value or outcome-based care concept. And especially discussing around what trends are actually driving it, what we see is during 2019, healthcare industry will continue to transit and stick into value-based model, and more sophisticated outcome-based model will get deployed, especially in the developed markets such as the US and some of the developed Western European countries. And emerging nations, on the other hand, will start to follow the best practices suited for their local needs. However, considering value-based or outcome-based initiative takes significant time to implement or to roll out the programs at a large scale, we still believe that most of the countries globally would not, the full-fledged rollout of this value-based care would not happen in just a single year, that is 2019. Of course, we can see a gradual momentum across different countries, including emerging markets, in next 5 to 10 years of time. Now, for example, even talking about one of the mature countries in terms of value-based care, that is the United States, it took around close to 5 years in reaching to what they have currently. And based on our estimate or the CMS data, we believe that roughly 1/3 of the healthcare payments in the United States are already tied to value-based care in some form. And moving forward, we believe the scope of value-based care in the US will move beyond an economic model and combine clinical, operation, and financial approaches to achieve much anticipated outcomes. And in that, what we see the implication is that during 2019, we anticipate payers especially will pursue more risk-based reimbursement arrangement. For example, United Health Group's value-based care spending, as per recent announcement, hit around $69 billion as part of their overall pool. And similarly, in one of the other developed markets such as Europe, we see countries such as UK and Sweden have already initiated measures around cost-effectiveness programs as part of their value-based healthcare programs. But in 29, what we see is that they will look at value or outcome, not just from a point of view of individual patient, but from the point of view of a health system as a whole. And we anticipate that more structural efforts by policymakers will be enforced to move towards a common framework for evaluating and implementing value-based healthcare across the EU continent. And on the other hand, if you talk about emerging market, one of the critical issue or the challenge in healthcare is access to quality care. and due to the resource constrained nature of the health systems in most of the emerging countries. Now, what we believe is that during 2019, policymakers will continue to look at ways of addressing this problem by prioritizing some form of value-based or outcome-based programs around key initiatives such as aged care, home health, and even the rollout of the universal health coverage, which is yet to reach 100% penetration in most of the emerging countries in the Asia or other part of the world. Now, the value-based care concept will have also significant implication for drug and device OEMs moving into 2019, and there is also a growing focus on the impact of spending on pharmaceuticals and medical device technologies on broader population health agenda. And this eventually poses both risk and opportunities for healthcare companies, because those that can show highest quality outcomes at competitive cost may be able to take the market share at the expense of the competitor. And during 2019 especially, we believe especially pharma companies will continue to face increasing demand to prove the value of their drugs across the globe. And to tackle the value, what we see is that some of the successful companies have been approaching collaboration between industry and government, where the need is to develop new model for around pricing for their innovative drugs or devices with especially the decision maker, be it the health system or the policy makers in that country. And as policy makers face a number of obstacles in implementing the value-based healthcare program globally, one of the critical challenges remains today is the availability or the lack of comprehensive data on outcome. And entering that, we believe capability around health data analytics will become a top priority for each CIOs in healthcare industries or companies or even health systems as well. And based on some of the financial experts' predictions, we believe that value-based care will drive more than half of the IT spending by 2025 for healthcare industry. Now, moving on to the next prediction, that is prediction number 2. What we believe is artificial intelligence will explode across the healthcare and life science ecosystem, especially post flagship level use cases yield positive results. And especially when we talk about that, we believe that AI for health IT applications market will cross $1.7 billion market by end of 2019. We further anticipate that by operationalizing AI platform across select healthcare workflows would result in around 10 to 15% of the productivity gain in next 3 to 5 years of time. And so discussing around what's actually driving it, we believe during 2019, AI across clinical and non-clinical use cases will start to show hard results, further bolstering the growth across the healthcare space. And in next 12 to 18 months, the priority will be to bring AI or cognitive platforms, technologies, use cases closer to the clinical care in order to augment the physicians and even the patients with actionable decision-making ability. However, in terms of the pricing for AI solution, this still remains a critical issue, as most of the end users, especially the provider groups, are often not convinced to dedicate additional budget for such IT capabilities, which comes as an add-on benefit or a new application on top of their existing IT investments or system. So in view of that, what we see is a cost-effective approach with clear evidence for potential ROI, return on investment for both parties, can help sustain the market growth in near future. Now, when we talk about key applications which will be prominent during 2019 around AI, we see 3 applications predominantly, such as workflow optimization, digital assistance, and risk prediction would be pretty prominent on demand, especially around AI systems or solutions or services. And especially talking about workflow optimization use cases, we see applications around elimination of unnecessary procedures and cost, or inpatient care and hospital management, and even patient data and risk analytics will be gaining prominence. And in terms of risk analytics, we are already seeing, bigger tech companies such as, Google is already at work with machine learning capabilities for predicting patient state, and the result boasts a flattering figure of around 95% accuracy, which is better than the hospital in-house warning system. And considering that, we also believe that moving on to 2019, machine learning will become a pervasive across clinical and operational outcomes use cases. So what is the implication for this for different healthcare stakeholders moving on to 2019? So we see a clear-cut implication especially for medical imaging stakeholders, and we anticipate that operationalizing AI platform across medical imaging workflows would result 15 to 20% gain in productivity, especially for radiologists in next 12 to 18 months. Moving forward in terms of digital pathology applications, we believe AI will make its way into pathology as far as clinical diagnostic spectrum is concerned, and we will further discuss these growth opportunities in one of their in vitro diagnostics segment in the later part of today's discussion. And continuation on this, what we see is that several small disruptive startups are providing deep learning tools that are being sought after by the big wings in the pathology industry to improvise the diagnostic workflow efficiency. And during 2019, we believe AI, pharma, AI, and real-time analytics will make adaptive clinical trial a reality than the concept. And we have, 2018 have been a phenomenal year in terms of investment around startups who are working around AI use cases for pharma R&D and some of the efficiencies around the clinical trial or operational use cases such as Burge Health from US, BioExcel Corporation, Recruition, and In Silico Medicine in the US as well. And apart from that, to summarize what we think during 2019, finally AI and machine learning will further evolve human and machine interaction. And moving forward, as clinicians start to embrace early AI application in healthcare industry, we will start to recognize the limitations of AI and explore the balance between man and machine intelligence. With that, let's move to the next prediction for today. And what we anticipate is that as part of our third prediction is digital health will come of age with an increased focus on individual care, where we are seeing a debate moving from digital health focus, moving from the traditional care setting to home care setting to kind of a holistic individual care setting. And what we anticipate is that during 2019, digital health tech catering out of the hospital setting cares will grow by 30% to cross $25 billion market globally. And key segment would include such as remote patient monitoring devices, telehealth platforms, and PERS, that is personal emergency response systems, and mHealth and wearable applications, obviously. And during 2019, application of digital health will continue to go far beyond the traditional systems as we discussed, especially to empower the individuals as healthcare consumers, not limited to patients alone, to manage their own health. And during 2019, we will also see that digital health will start to be a pivot around defining value for healthcare and innovation and technology. And some of the key drivers for this are obvious suspects such as chronic health condition, which accounts for more than 40 of the 56 million annual deaths globally, and the aging population. As per United States Nations data, it is estimated that 60 and older will made up around 22% of the total population for high-income countries, especially by end of 2018. And this is going to be a big cost burden for most of the developed economies in the globe. And in telling this, we anticipate that there will be increased spending for elderly care programs such as the home care or aged care programs driven by these digital solutions. For example, Australia has dedicated roughly around $1.6 billion Australian dollars to assist older Australians with services in their home settings. Even when we talk about countries like US, the elderly care get close to 37% of the pie of the healthcare spending, that is 1.4 trillion. And when we compare with the children or the infant care, that they hardly get around 9.8% of the spending. So this is going to be a big issue moving forward, and which is essentially going to drive the penetration or the adoption or the acceptance of digital health globally. And one of the interesting facts which is going to drive it in the B2B space is the favorable reimbursement environment for digital tool. And during 2019, what we believe is that reimbursement policies towards clinically relevant digital health application will expand care delivery models beyond physical medicine to include behavioral health, digital health, wellness therapies, dentistry, nutrition, and prescription management, among others. And especially this is one of the clearly rated by some of the announcement made by CMS early this week, where they have finalized a rule for remote patient monitoring reimbursement under Medicare, and are about to propose payment rules which will definitely redesign the payments for home health systems and would encourage value for digital health solutions. And especially we also see telemedicine creating a bigger role in emerging markets such as Singapore, where telemedicine will move into public health spend as well as as a platform in the regulatory sandbox. And mHealth will definitely continue as with increasing consumer awareness and the push for companies for device plus data plus intelligence platforms to monetize the data economy around their devices. Now, finally, moving to the implications of this is what we believe is during 2019 we will see digital solution will be more targeted or more focused in a way, wherein we see increased spending on focused digital health solutions with proven outcomes for care coordination and patient management, population management initiatives. In terms of business model disruption, as we start to see the line between industries such as retail, IT, and healthcare start to blur during 2019, companies which are often quoted as GAFA in the West, that is Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Apple, and in the West, companies like BAT, that is Baidu, Ali Health, and Tencent in the East, will start to dominate the individual care space or the home care space. And more essentially, the new investment focused around digital health will be more around solutions that are efficient to capture and convert individual health data into actionable outcomes. One of the best examples to quote will be the transition of the wearables, moving from a consumer device to kind of a health awareness device or self-help management devices. And it will be important moving forward for companies involved in monetizing the IOMT or digital health data to see it as a new source of innovation and service-oriented future revenue stream apart from their traditional device and drug mainstream businesses. So with that, let's move to the last part of our briefing today to discuss some of the key growth opportunities across the 5 major healthcare sectors we have discussed or essentially we track in general. So the first growth opportunity is around pharma and biotech sector, and here are the three key growth opportunities we see will be essential moving into 2019. The first one is around regenerative medicine, especially talking about cell therapy. Now what we see is that during 2019, cell and gene therapy combination is rapidly gaining momentum, which makes use of gene editing tools and vector delivery system to devise innovative curative platforms. And opportunities especially are abundant in the emerging markets, especially in terms of cold chain transportation and manufacturing. And when we talk about cell therapy, it accounts for roughly a major share of regenerative medicine and is estimated to reach about $8.2 billion by 2025. There is also a pipeline of induced potent stem cells, which are iPS cells, or MSCs, and ADSs, which are basically adipose tissue-derived stem cells for novel therapeutic treatment around conditions such as neurological, musculoskeletons, and dermatology condition, among others. And especially when we talk about market players, They are investing in innovating models such as risk sharing and in-licensing or out-licensing this type of new innovative pipelines. And there is a faster adoption towards in-home expansion for this development around this cell and gene therapies. And with cell therapy manufacturing being time sensitive, biopharma companies are implementing IT-based solutions for improving manufacturing capabilities, and they will continue to invest around those IT capabilities in order to gain the process or operational efficiencies. And talking about the second growth opportunity, that is digital solutions for age-related disorders, we estimate that anti-aging market will cross $85 billion by 2022, which would essentially include segments such as dietary supplements, conventional therapies, and aesthetic products and solutions. Now, this represents a high growth opportunity both from a R&D perspective for drugs, that is drug development, and more importantly for the emerging digital field, or what often we call as digital therapeutics, in terms of solutions around adherence, condition management, and such as assisted living, fall prevention services, among others. Now, to achieve that, companies are aggressively leveraging emerging technologies such as mobile technology, AI, and big data analytics capabilities, which offer what we to claim to deliver clinical results with lower cost and no if side effects. Essentially, what we see the beyond the pill strategies also happening in the pharma space. And what we anticipate in future is that digital therapeutics can either replace or complement medication in neurodegenerative diseases or in the CNS space, which often has limited proven clinical substance around current drugs and their use cases or applications. Now, talking about the third growth opportunity, we believe that virtual clinical trial digitization will play a critical role in determining clinical trials model, and this will help shifting from high cost and difficult to access setting to more patient-centric and efficient models. And convergence of mHealth, wearable, and gamification concept will increase patient engagement by bringing concepts such as bring your own device concepts. Moving on to the next growth opportunity we will discuss is around the in vitro diagnostics, and we see that liquid biopsy will continue to gain prominence, especially around given opportunities around the image miRNA, ctDNA, and CTAs to capture the occurrence of cancer as an early precursor or as a diagnostic screening test. And given the potential of the technology, we anticipate that it can even replace some of the imaging modalities offered today as part of screening program. And for example, across the different cancer states in the United States only, the addressable market opportunity for this type of screening test is around $100 billion during 2019. With that, we believe demand for novel liquid biopsy tests for early cancer screening will continue and demonstrate results with clinicians. And in terms of direct-to-consumer genetics test, we have seen this is being leveraged as a next revenue model by established as well as mid-tier clinical laboratories testing service providers, and it has actually opens a lot of more innovative models or care delivery outcomes such as walk-in clinics, retail food outlets, also called as convenience clinics and online clinics. And recently, we can see from the example of LabCorp, which last week announced around their upcoming online D2C platform called as Pixel, which will initially offer 4 screening test insights on heart health, diabetes, colorectal cancer, and general wellness. And what we anticipate that the D2C direct-to-consumer genetic market will hit around $1.2 billion by 2019 with a growth rate of 22% moving forward. And lastly, we see that companion diagnostic tests with hit which are about $3 billion market currently are expected to cross $6 billion market by 2025, with especially NGS being the preferred technology for co-development of drug and device partnership. And moving forward, use of AI-based software and analytics tools will be on high rise for pharmacogenomics and biomarker-level targeted therapies. Moving on to the next growth opportunities, we see, especially for medical technologies, specialized ortho wearables capable of measuring and blending of joint ranges of motion and judge the patient's pain level during movement in combination with companion mHealth app for orthopedic rehabilitation will see clinical adoption, resulting in a roughly 3 to 5% reduction in admission rate. And especially we see that this represents a huge opportunity for orthopedic implant and surgical OEMs to gain significant fast mover advantage through innovative outcome-based payer and provider partnership to attain the value-based outcome requirement. And secondly, the augmented reality in operating room, we believe that will finally open up new doors for real-time support to improve especially the clinical efficiencies during the surgeries. And it is likely that with the ongoing penetration, we can expect close to 5 to 10% of operating room leveraging augmented reality capabilities during 2019 and beyond. Then moving to robotics and AI-enabled automation, we believe that roughly 8 to 10% of the large hospitals, especially in countries like US, Europe, Japan, and some of the advanced Middle East countries like Dubai, UAE, and Saudi Arabia, will use AI-enabled smart conveyor flow system coupled with automated guided vehicles and automated mobile robots to streamline manual workflows related to sterile processing, and biomedical departments. And with that, moving to the next growth opportunity, especially for medical imaging, what we see is that coronary computed tomography and angiography will gain prominence. Well, this has been a decade-old technology. What is primarily driving this technology in 2019 is purely because of the efficacy around this procedure, and more importantly, it's a non-invasive procedure compared to the current invasive procedure, which is generally practiced to follow these therapies. And this has been, what we see is that this is slowly moving towards a standard of care procedure, and this has been already adopted in countries like UK. And we perceive that moving forward, it will continue to become a gatekeeper test, especially for ICS and in major imaging market during 2019. Talking about the next growth opportunity around image-guided therapy, what we see is that in the recent year, IGT have been widely used in treatment of cancer, spearheading the treatment procedures by allowing the physician to precisely focus on tumors, and this will continue in 2019, where image-guided therapies will get more intense in determining cancer treatment pathways, and the image-guided segment will continue to evolve and advance its capability in treatment planning, treatment response assessment, localization, and targeted delivery techniques. And moving on to the final thing on imaging, we see that enterprise imaging will continue to witness or rather gain prominence and will begin its transition to mainstream clinical imaging platform, supporting concepts like multimodality, multi-ology imaging applications, and especially enterprise imaging strategy will fuel the adoption of vendor-neutral archive, while health IT vendors such as EMR and EHR vendors will increasingly leverage universal viewing solutions for image enabling the healthcare enterprise. Furthermore, powerful mobile imaging capabilities, the ability to perform analytics and generate real-time patient insight for improved decision-making will bolster clinical collaborations. Moving to the last but not the least, health IT growth opportunities, we see that healthcare data analytics will continue to dominate, especially, and this is linked to one of our predictions as well. And even the second is around the health AI in healthcare. Again, it's aligned closely with one of our top 8 predictions. And what we see is that based on our research, the AI application, especially in the clinical and non-clinical operations, will achieve around 68.5% growth rate in next 4 to 5 years time. And finally, digital therapeutics, which is essentially about becoming a true medical alternative that will utilize communication-based technologies, apps, and software to improve patient outcome and help to lower the cost of healthcare. The overall digital therapeutics market is expected to grow at a compounded annual growth of roughly 30% in next 2 to 3 years of time. With that, I pass on to Renita to lead us with the final concluding slides. Over to you, Rinda.
Thank you, Kamaljeet. So we just have a minute to finish up. So I'd just like to close out here by saying that we've reviewed almost 1,000 technologies and identified 50 top growth opportunities in healthcare today that exist for 2019. But what does all of this mean? I think at the end of the day, technology is really increasing the barriers between the patient and the provider. And we've seen that a lot through the stories, the real-life stories of patients and doctors over the course of this year. And we really need to change that. We need to change the questions we ask, and we need to change what we're actually trying to measure and achieve. So this whole debate around digital transformation that has overtaken the healthcare industry, we need to move beyond that debate and really not focus on the mirage of technology novelties that we have, but really focus on what really matters, which is the patient and the healthcare system. So we have identified 3 things that we need to be asking questions on for 2019. Rather than asking questions on what kind of technology do we need, we really need to think about what are the outcomes we're trying to drive, what is the behavior we're trying to change, and who are the people we're trying to change for that. So rather than understanding that this technology is great for this, knowing the destination and the environment of the destination, the operational and the customer experience of that destination that we want to deliver to takes us to asking the right questions. I think the second big thing that we need to talk about is how do we monetize these cool tech approaches that we've just talked about. And rather than talk about just looking at the business model, how do we use technology and industry convergence to drive business and care delivery innovation? How do we navigate the intersection where all of these digital technologies, capabilities, and infrastructure come together? And how do we integrate, connect this entire disparate digital tech in ways that adds value eventually for the patient and the member experience? And eventually, I think we need to shift our business priority from how do you sequence and prioritize technology adoption and actually focus on industry needs, finding the right optimum market positioning with the right end user, so bringing the right product to the right person at the right time through the right channel. And really at the heart of this lies what we're trying to achieve in precision medicine. And this goes on with the ongoing debate that we have, that we've spent a lot of time in 2018 talking about AI versus physicians, consumer versus clinical, human empathy versus machine intelligence. I believe that we are not like no other industry, and the digital transformation of health is often complex, and it has very, very heavy regulatory and ethical barriers. And this makes the market positioning and buy-in from all the stakeholders much more important than any other industry. So I think with this, I'd like to conclude our presentation. I'd like to pass it on to Kamaljeet, who will give us the results of the poll, and then to Anna. So Kamaljeet, if you could go through the results of our poll survey.
Yeah, so we have the results where, obviously as expected, big data analytics, which is, from a readiness point of view, is holding somewhere around 36% of the votes, and followed by artificial intelligence, which, being voted by 23% of the audiences who have voted today. This clearly, signifies some of the predictions and some of the argument we have made today. And that is followed by one of the, again, mature technology around, mHealth, wearable, somewhere around 19%. We still, anticipate these are, these are still, high in adoption, may not be, in the clinical grade or the medical grade arena, but when we talk about overall individual care, we see a larger adoption from mHealth and wearable applications. And finally, we see blockchain, which is obviously at very nascent stage. Roughly around 8% of the people voted around that as as one of the technologies. With that, I just pass on to Anna to open this session for Q&A with all the audience we have. Over to you, Anna.
Thank you, Kalmanjit. Thank you, Renita. We have time for a few questions here. So one of our questions here from our audience reads, this market size, is it for devices only?
No, it's not devices only. It covers all the segments that we talked about today. So it covers pharmaceuticals, medical devices, biotechnology, clinical diagnostics, digital health, and medical imaging. All manufacturer revenues. We have not included in market sizing hospital revenues.
Thank you, Renita. And another question here, how does reimbursement work for these exciting new technologies?
Kamaljeet, you want to take that?
Sure. That's a very timely and interesting question, because when we talk about healthcare, especially reimbursement comes as one of the predominant monetization way, apart from the out of the pocket spending, especially in the dominant markets like the US and the European market. Now, as we discussed during our presentation, especially around the third prediction around digital health, we see clearly this argument around the reimbursement for these technologies or solutions around that are clearly shifting as health system increasingly understand that beyond the treatment focus, they have to move towards what we call the preventive care. And they do understand that technologies such as mHealth, wearables, AI, decision support are going to play a bigger role in terms of preventing those care and kind of dealing the cost of care outside of the high acuity setting, that is the hospital, ORs, emergency rooms, and other things. And having said that, what we also understand that when we talk about apart from the reimbursement, when we talk about how people are going to monetize that, and especially when we talk about very cutting edge technologies such as AI and blockchain, we still see the main end user, the key end users such as the physicians or health system per se, and even the consumers. They are not ready or convinced to pay at this moment, provided it has some tangible outcomes, such as we have seen in the augmenting radiologists, which has been proven, and some of the AI applications of the algorithm are already we know more than 15 companies which have been approved by FDA as part of their AI application for imaging use cases. So as these things get weighted, we'll see more acceptance and investment around that when they generate a real ROI around that. And when we talk about very nascent technologies around blockchain, we see that it's not around the revenue, rather it's more about cost saving opportunities, cost saving around the current roughly $422 billion of waste, abuse, and fraudulent activities around healthcare in order to replace some of the mundane works, activities or digital workflow in healthcare. So that's where we see, purely from a reimbursement point of view, it is going to be replaced. It is going to change, and that would vary depending on the maturity of the countries or the health system in the global scenario.
Thank you, Kalmanjit. Now we have time for one more question, and we'll take this question quickly. And any other questions that we have not addressed today, the team will get back with you via email. So our last question here. Interoperability is a big challenge in our industry. How will AI work without good data?
This is also a very interesting question, and obviously, when we talk about AI, data is the holy grail for AI, or rather, weighting the AI decisions or the intelligence. Now, there is a shift, or I would say we have to see the timeline around that in terms of the application, especially around data around enterprise data and data around closed networks of data such as health system efficiencies. Now, if we are able to generate those data, and especially in developed market, we actually have the control around those data, and that's much easier to achieve operations around that. That's why when we talk about the near-term growth opportunities around AI application, we see workflow optimization, risk analytics in terms of operation again are some of the low-hanging fruit. But when we talk about AI applied to patient stratification, population health risk management, even precision medicine to that say, that's still a far-sighted, in terms of when we talk about accuracy. Yes, no doubt there are, some form of clinical decision support system, but I would say, the difference between the winners and the losers would be, those companies who have a focused approach towards, targeting a specific ology or the therapeutic area, or even a specific use cases around that with, certain renowned health systems and other things. And moving forward, as we mentioned, this the partnership between the industry and the government or the health system are going to play bigger role. And as and when we move on with all this initiative around population genomics and all, we will have a lot of data pools, I would say data lakes, to finally make AI more powerful as we proceed. But definitely at this moment, yes, things like overall population level decision supports need still validation from a data interoperability, which is I see more over a timeline issue rather than a technological readiness issue. Linda, would you like to add something to that?
No, I think we're running out of time. I do want to say that we have a very detailed report on the outlook for 2019 and the predictions, and we have all the growth opportunities broken into separate chapters. So if anyone is interested on looking at that report, please let us know. We'll be happy to take it forward with you. Thank you so much. Over to you, Anna.
Thank you, Renita. Thank you, Kamaljot. This concludes today's webinar. We hope you found today's webinar informative. Again, you can contact us with the details provided on your screen at this time. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.